Thank you, Austin. Good evening, those on Zoom. Thank you for being here. This is a Williamson County Growth Plan update meeting for the all other basins, the West Basin, Central Franklin Basin, Spencer Creek, and Watson Branch. If you're on Zoom, please use the chat feature to ask your questions, and we'll activate that at the conclusion of the presentation. Purpose of tonight's meeting is to inform, answer any questions, hopefully get specific feedback on the working draft boundary. We also have a survey, and the link's provided right here. We ask that everybody take the survey and provide specific comments as you can. It's short, there are only a few questions. The survey is also linked on the project webpage, and we'll keep that updated throughout the process. The format of the presentation, it should take us maybe 20 minutes to go through, is we'll provide an overview of the Williamson County Growth Plan. We'll provide some background information on land use planning analysis that we've done over the last few years that kind of help inform this process. We'll get into the recommendations for these specific basins, and then also talk a little bit about transportation implications and sewer and next steps. And I'll remind everybody to please take the survey. The slide before you shows the adopted Williamson County Growth Plan from 2001. It's what's in place now. The state law mandated municipalities undertake a growth planning process and adopt urban growth boundaries. Williamson County did this to be in compliance. And as you can see, each municipality in Williamson County is shown in a color on the map, as well as their urban growth boundary. Franklin is right in the middle in the yellowish gold color. The lighter tannish color represents the city limits at the time, and the darker gold represents the urban growth boundary that the city could potentially grow into over time. And as you can see by this slide, that Franklin has grown in the last 20 years. The dark yellow line represents the city limits, and the turquoise bluish greenish color represents the urban growth boundary as it stands today and as it has in the last 20 years. In the west part of town, you may have noticed that the city has grown since that 20-year mark, and a little bit up to the north and along Franklin Road as well. All the cities in Williamson County are undertaking a similar process, and they're conducting outreach, and they're looking at their urban growth boundaries and looking at refining them. Some of the, and the county is leading this process, by the way. They're coordinating it, and they've asked all the cities to do their outreach this fall. Some of the guiding principles are listed on this page. I'll highlight a couple of them that all the municipalities are looking at. One, that it's coordinated, and we are doing this in a coordinated way. We are coordinating with the other municipalities. We want this to be a transparent public process. This meeting is being recorded. There is also an in-person option, and we've had in-person option for each of the meetings that we've had over the last 2 days. The project webpage will remain up to date, and we'll work to keep that updated over the next several months. The state statute requires us to kind of look at a 20-year planning horizon. So we are looking at 20 years. We realize there are some areas we anticipate growth sooner than 20. Some municipalities in Williamson County are kind of looking at 10-year horizons and 20-year horizons, but it's hard to predict exactly how things are going to fall and when. But that's what the state statute calls for. Another key tenet to how we're looking at the urban growth boundary is through the lens of efficient and fiscally sustainable delivery of infrastructure and services. And that's sort of been a bedrock for how the city staff is looking and analyzing the urban growth boundary. We have an internal working group made up of engineers from our engineering department, from our water management department. We have someone from the fire department and parks, as well as some planners and reps from administration. We've all worked together through the summer to create this working draft boundary that we've created, and we're looking for feedback on that. other guiding principles, creating a regional form. So there's kind of a distinctive form around each municipality in the county, um, and also respecting each municipality's autonomy. In 2016, a suitability analysis was conducted as part of the Envision Franklin update. And the map that's before you has several colors on it. The red and the orange represent areas that are least suitable for development, and the green, the heavy green and the light green represent areas that are more suitable for development. And the suitability analysis is based upon 9 factors. The factors that are weighted the heaviest being areas with topographical constraints, maybe steep slopes, areas with floodplain, floodway, stream buffers, as well as the accessibility and the ability to connect or extend sewer infrastructure. One of the hallmarks of city services and planning is being on the gravity sewer system, and that's how we want to grow. That's how we've been growing, and we think that's a responsible way to grow as we move forward. The suitability analysis informed the Envision Franklin Design Concepts map that's before you. And I failed to mention the suitability analysis. If you're interested in kind of learning more about that, it's on page 139 of Envision Franklin. And the design concepts map is also in Envision Franklin. And areas that were least suitable, you may have noticed some of those areas kind of on the periphery of the UGB. And those areas were designated as development reserve, which is kind of a low density holding zone until a later date at which infrastructure is more available, and these areas become more appropriate for high density development. As our internal working group has looked at the UGB and revising it, we did it by a drainage basin approach. We looked at the drainage basins, and the ones we're talking about in this meeting being the West, Central Franklin, Spencer Creek. And we've had meetings to kind of review the others as well. This flyer or this map was mailed out to property owners who own property that is either proposed to be added or removed from the UGB. For the areas we're talking about tonight, these are probably the least impacted areas. As you can see on this map, the areas in red are recommended to be removed from the UGB. The areas in green are recommended to be added into the UGB. So the green area, most of that is in the Goose Creek, exit 61 along I-65, that part of town, Paytonsville Road, Long Lane, Goose Creek Bypass. The largest area we're recommending to remove is the Mays Creek Basin that's on the east side of town. And then on Carter's Creek Pike and South Hall Road on the west side of town, we refer to that as Southwest Basin 1. We are recommending that to be removed from the UGB due to for a couple reasons, topographical constraints. There are a lot of steep slopes in this area. There's a rural character that's been retained and that is desired to continue, and the inability to provide sewer in a cost-effective way. The area to the west, across from West Haven, that makes up the Gentry Farm, and the property to the north, the Harding Ventures property, they make up roughly 1,000 acres or so, and we are recommending those properties be removed. We're recommending those properties be removed because we heard from the 2 large property owners. The Gentry family desired to keep their property a working generation farm and requested to be removed. As we went through the West Basin study, for lack of a better word, over the last year, we did outreach with the property owners in this area, and we heard from them, as well as the property to the north that we refer to as the Harding Ventures property, that they wish to remain outside of the city And the Harding Ventures property has requested a rezoning with the county for a very low density residential community that just fit better in the county than in the city. Those are two primary reasons we've removed those properties, just to respect their wishes and their desire to maintain agriculture uses, and then also for the other property to develop at a very low density. The next slide shows in the red the area to be removed. You'll also notice the area in dark green, which signifies areas of conservation. And in this area, it's mostly floodplain associated with the West Harpeth and Harpeth River. And then the lines that are in color, the blue and the red, represent arterials and collectors from the major thoroughfare plan, Connect Franklin. And there's also, if you can see it, the existing sewer collector system. So you can see where sewer is. And I've got Jonathan Marston with our engineering department. He's the assistant director, and he's going to come up and say a few words about the transportation network. And then Brian Goodwin with our water management department will talk a little bit about water and sewer in this part of the community. This slide and next. Brian,
all right, I'll probably jump to the next slide here just to be a little cleaner. So what we're showing here on the screen is an excerpt from our Connect Franklin, which is our major thoroughfare plan, and it's our guiding document for our transportation network over the next 20 to 25 years. And it is just a planning document. So we're showing what we propose our needs to be over the next 20 to 25 years for this particular area in Franklin as growth and shows what growth would need as far as transportation needs. So whether that be development-based growth or whether that just be general growth from traffic traveling through the area or local traffic in the area that's our own residents or commuters through the area. So generally what you're seeing on the screen in front of you is how those roads in the area that are existing roads would be upgraded, whether that be Hillsborough Road, 96 West, Del Rio Pike, Carlisle Lane, Boyd Mill Avenue. Also the blue line on the screen is McHatcher Parkway. And there's also a handful of the green lines on the screen, which are collector roadways. Some of those are new roadways, such as the one that goes east to west between Del Rio Pike and Hillsborough Road. Some of those roads may never be built based on potential development in the area, and they may be built in different alignments or totally changed and built maybe two roads versus one road in the future. These are just planning documents for us in the future to help propose and show what we think the growth in the area may lead us toward, and to at least propose a transportation network that fits the needs of the area. And what was shown on the previous slide, especially in the red area that's proposed to be removed from the UGB, we had previously shown some potential roadways that would be development driven in that area. And we had shown to our Board of Mayor and Aldermen those roadways, and we're proposing to remove them based on the development potential in that area and the developer's proposal to show high volume local roadways. But with our recommendation to remove them from the urban growth boundary, we would of course remove those from our Connect Franklin, as we would not plan those areas if they are not in our urban growth boundary or city limits. So this is actually one of our simpler areas as far as our Connect Franklin plan. As I said before, these are mostly existing roadways with the exception of a few crossing roadways that would cross through some of the larger swaths of undeveloped land, but those would only be built as development in the area would happen. So, thank you.
Thank you, Jonathan, for that. And now I've got Brian Goodwin, who's just going to kind of talk at a high level of how these basins would be served by sewer.
Well, these basins that we're discussing at the moment, that is where the bulk of our infrastructure already exists, and connectivity to the current infrastructure is prevalent. So any improvements that are developer driven at developers' expense. Any improvements that our city pursued, the connectivity is there, and it has not been an issue. We'll continue to service these areas. We see no issues in a 20-year horizon, and therefore no change to these boundaries was recommended, other than, of course, what was mentioned in the West Basin, where we had property owners that requested to be removed. Since 2017, the city has done improvements in the Watson Branch by the Watson Branch Interceptor. We've also did improvements through the Lad Park Interceptor that was constructed. We've got plans through Cool Springs to do improvements to the South Prong Interceptor, and we also improved the Spencer Creek Basin by just finishing a sewer interceptor in that location. We've also provided investments with a water plant construction of $15 million that came online in 2018, and are currently improving our sewer plant with a $132 million investment there. So our ability to serve the area is not an issue, and we'll continue to do so.
Thank you, Brian. And just to wrap up, what does this mean for me? For properties proposed to remain in the Franklin UGB, the potential remains for future annexation into the city at property owner request. The county zoning would also remain the same as it is today. For properties proposed to be removed from the Franklin urban growth boundary, this would mean removal from Envision Franklin, the city's land use plan. Gravity sewer would not be planned to serve that area. And then Williamson County Planning would facilitate a separate process to assign future land uses in a different zoning district. Otherwise, no change in property address or school zoning. Sometimes people have questions about that. In terms of the next steps in public outreach, you'll see it right here where we're highlighted. That signifies what we're doing now. And we are going to provide a brief update at the joint conceptual workshop tomorrow, which is an informal meeting of the Planning Commission and Board of Mayor and Aldermen. And then we have open office hours on Friday and next Wednesday from 8 to 5 here in City Hall in the training room. So we'll have some staff available to discuss if you'd like to come in and drop by and you have questions about your specific situation or anything related to the UGB, you can come in and drop by at any time and talk. Otherwise, we can set up a time to discuss by phone or have an appointment. We are hoping to have an updated working draft to share at the October 12th BOMA work session and get their feedback and provide them with an update. And then the county is also planning a growth symposium on the 19th of October that'll take place in the morning at the County Enrichment Center. And then the steps beyond that have yet to be determined. We'll update the project webpage as time goes on. We'll keep it updated. But ultimately, a coordinating committee will be convened. And once they are officially convened, there's 6 months for them to work through the adoption process that not only affects Franklin, but all the municipalities in Williamson County, as well as the county itself in terms of their planned growth areas and rural areas. And the coordinating committee they'll be responsible for holding 2 public hearings, which is an opportunity for the public to be heard. And each city will also hold 2 public hearings as well to kind of get that feedback. So what we're doing right now this fall is we're trying to build a consensus going forward. So as we get into early 2022 and hopefully the coordinating committee will be convened, we can hand them something that's generally supported by the community and that has responded to some of the issues, through the public process. So again, use the QR code to take our survey. Please take the survey. It's short. There's also a spot for you to put in your email address if you'd like to get on the email distribution list. The email distribution is probably going to be the best way to stay up to date and informed on this process. And the project webpage again is franklintn.gov/UGB. And there's also a link to the survey on the project webpage. And at this point, I think we can move into questions. If there are any or comments in Annette, you can allow people to unmute themselves and also type in questions in the chat feature. And I believe Annette put the survey link in the chat feature as well. So you can take it. It should only take a minute or two. But I appreciate that, and we'll wait. We'll give it a minute and see if there are any questions.
Hey, Andrew, I've got a question. This is Greg.
Yes.
Hey, I noticed that you're still showing the Fieldstone Parkway extension to the north.
Yes, sir.
Can you talk a little bit about that?
Jonathan is probably best suited to talk about that. There's a question about the Fieldstone Parkway extension still being shown in the major thoroughfare plan.
Yes.
Yep. Yeah, Jonathan's going to come over and address that.
It is still shown currently in the major thoroughfare plan. It was shown recently. I think it was included back in the 2014 model and in that plan, and we included it in the 2016 Connect Franklin plan. And we included that based on the fact that the right-of-way was still there in that section back up, at least through the existing neighborhood. And we've done some research since then, and our director has actually done the research and is going to present that to the board when that item is reconsidered, and let the board determine whether that stays in or comes out at that appropriate time. I know that was an item of discussion to come up. Our recommendation is obviously to leave that in just for potential growth. I mean, it's important to understand that just because something is shown in the major thoroughfare plan it's not an absolute certainty that that thing is going to get built. It's just there for planning purposes, so that ultimately if something does get built along those boundaries in the future, we have something to prepare and plan for that allows a developer in the future and allows the city to be on the same page and say that, yes, this is something we would like to plan for in the future, whether we actually build the thing or not. Just as such as the way that when Fieldstone Farms was built, the right-of-way was dedicated at that current time. Now, the whole roadway wasn't built at the time, but the right-of-way was dedicated. So ultimately, that's a decision the board of mayor and alderman has to make with whether they want to include that in the Connect Franklin document or not. But there's still many, many decisions down the road that ultimately determine whether that roadway gets built or not. But the reason it was included in that study is because we saw the right-of-way there, and none of the staff that was here at the time was here during previous studies when the board voted to take that out of the previous major thoroughfare plan. We could not find the reasoning behind that, and we did not know about that. So that's why it was included in the more recent document. So there was a disconnect there and a miscommunication. So that's something that's going to be brought up here at a future board of mayor and alderman meeting. So it's a good question, though.
Can I add to that question?
Sure.
That road would be going through or right along the back of my property. When we purchased this home, not even a year ago, that was not mentioned. And I'm just wondering, when will the point come that will either happen or not happen? Because having that looming over me right now, knowing that it's a possibility forever, makes me not want to live here anymore.
Well, I can tell you that since the development's been there, the city of Franklin, that right of way was dedicated through the entire development at the time that subdivision was platted. So since the late 90s, early 2000s, that's been owned by the city of Franklin for a roadway to go there. The city obviously hasn't built
From our understanding, though, that road was originally meant for a school that was to be built prior to Cal Turner's purchase of that property. So because there is no school there, it doesn't really make sense for there to be a thoroughfare going through. That was prior to the homes already being built. Now that the homes are built, I cannot imagine the destruction that it would create of all of these homes' backyards are livelihoods. Everyone's homes back here. There's tons of homes. It's close. It would just destroy people's homes and livelihoods.
This item is on a BOMA agenda, and ultimately, again, the board will decide whether that comes out of the major thoroughfare plan, and ultimately, if it stays in or doesn't, is included in that plan at all, which is a planning document.
Thank you.
They would decide whether it is built or not, ultimately, even past that point.
Okay, great.
Okay. So this is just an open-ended thing, though, that we have to live with.
Currently, it's just shown in a planning document. It's simply a line on a piece of paper. And there's no funding at all for that project.
Well, I believe the developer that wants to build there would pay for it.
They would not, most likely not have enough funding to pay for the entire roadway. They would potentially be able to fund a portion of it, but not the entire roadway.
Well, he's
Again,
on this call, so I'm sure he can,
He's right below you.
yeah, I'm sure he can,
Again, I would try, I understand the concern, but I would redirect this as this particular meeting's not specifically focused on one particular issue like this. It's about the urban growth boundary as a whole and
Right.
not a specific issue like this. This is more of an issue for the specific item when it comes before the Board of Mayor and Alderman to discuss Connect Franklin as an item.
Okay, well, we
That
just
would
saw
be
this as an
appropriate time to
opportunity.
discuss that item.
Sorry.
we were just making sure because it is the thoroughfare going through people's backyards. That's
Yeah.
why we're here, because if it is Connect Franklin, you are connecting our, these roads through our backyard, making a huge thoroughfare. And
We just saw it as an opportunity to get more information.
We understand, and I will, the one thing I would offer and try to stay succinct is that we would stay within that current right of way. We would not propose to get outside of what the existing right of way would be.
That right away is about 10 feet from our deck.
yeah.
That's why we're concerned.
But thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Thanks, Andrew and Jonathan. I have one other question. Would there
Yes.
be any contemplation of extending the urban growth boundary north along Spencer Creek? Not far. I'm just talking about the undeveloped properties that are along Spencer Creek.
That's something we could consider. We're not proposing any changes at this point. But if that's an idea you have, we're asking everybody to fill out the survey and include specifics in there in the open-ended part of that survey. And that's something our internal group could consider.
I was just wondering if there was a reason why it was not included, if maybe the sewer gravity flowed north instead of gravity flowed south.
The area along Spencer Creek, in fact, I'll have Brian come and address that question. The city does serve some residential areas to the north that are outside of the current city limits as part of the arrangement that was made several years ago. But he was asking about the properties along Spencer Creek Road that are currently not being considered or not being proposed to be added into the UGB.
Okay.
You may go back to the drainage basin slide
Yeah.
and see if we can go back there, Greg. It's right up there. If you can, I got to move my toolbar, Greg. Just hang on a minute. It's right up in there. Let me see if I can move that.
Yeah.
Hang on a minute. There you go. So the area that he's referring to is outside of the drainage basin. And at this point, we're recommending to stay within the drainage basin. But as I did mention, there is some sewer, and you can speak to that. There are some areas served by our sewer outside of the drainage basin.
Yeah, if those areas were served by us outside the drainage basin, it was probably a case of where getting the infrastructure and allowing that was readily workable. I don't know what triggered that exact decision or when it was made. It was a partnership. Okay. Probably the best way to answer this question is submit this question, Greg, and, we'll get the answer and get you the history on it, on why it was, why this decision was made. But in this meeting, I'm not really privy to that specific location or exactly how that came about.
Yeah, no problem.
Thanks.
I do see a question in the chat feature, What is your assumption regarding the completion of Mac Hatcher Southwest corridor, as well as adding lanes to existing? See this as a major driver enabler for future growth. As y'all are all aware, Mac Hatcher Northwest extension is nearing completion, and I think they've set the date for November 4th or October 31st. And there are long-term plans to add another bridge and add more lanes to that section. In terms of the remaining part of Mac Hatcher in the Mac Hatcher Southwest, it's a TDOT project. I'll let Jonathan speak to the current status of that.
Southwest.
I think so.
Okay, so as Andrew said, currently what you see on the Mac Hatcher Northwest quadrant, which is what's under construction now, is nearing completion and should be complete toward the end of October. And that'll give us 2 lanes. And in the future, that's considered what's phase 1 of that particular project. And phase 2 would construct the other 2 lanes of a divided highway. And that goes from where you see now Hillsborough Road, just south of 96 West, to Townsend Boulevard in the West Haven subdivision. And then the southwest quadrant would pick up there at Townsend Boulevard, come back around the southwest corner of the city and pick up at Columbia Avenue, where the Mac Hatcher Parkway currently ends. There's a preliminary alignment that stands for that's been in place since, I believe, 2005, from a final impact study and an advanced planning report that was performed by the state of Tennessee with input, obviously, from the city of Franklin. And there's been some minor tweaks to that since then, but nothing design-wise, hard set of plans that have been done there, aside from what was done in the planning studies. But as far as time frame, there's nothing specific on time frames yet, because there's been so much focus on getting the existing sections widened and also getting this northwest section started and getting at least those first phase built. We know that that's a push to get the whole quadrant completed or the whole loop completed. So that'll be one of our next focuses, is getting that at least started in preliminary design and getting TDOT to focus on that as well. Again, that will be a TDOT driven project because it is a state route. It's a limited access route that's it will be state funded and state driven. We know that's important to the area, but it's a state project. So I don't have a definitive time frame on that, but you're still talking in the course of many years. So it's not something that's going to happen in the next 5 or 10 years. It's something that's many years in the making.
Are there any more questions? Thank you, Fred. Good question. Well, I guess we'll go ahead and wrap up early. Again, we have open office hours on Friday from 8 to 5 in the training room here in City Hall. And we also have them next Wednesday. If there's any outstanding questions or issues that you all have, feel free to reach out to myself or Jonathan or Brian. We'd be happy to assist and answer any questions. Hope you all have a wonderful evening. Thank you.